Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. My name is Joe. Today I'm going to be doing another video on the game The British Way. This is a coin multi-pack, the first of its kind. And it contains 4 games, all 4 of which were designed by Stpehen Rangazas. And they all deal with the end of empire period for the British Empire in the post-World War II years. So previously I did a first look at the game and, basically an unboxing with a little bit more involved, talking about how the game works and so on and so forth. I did a follow-up video to that, which was a solo playthrough of the first game, chronologically speaking. You can play the games in any order. And that would be the Palestine game. So I did a full solitaire playthrough of that game, and that's the second video. This game I'm going to try, this is Malaya, which is the second chronologically. And this one is a little bit more close, I would say, to kind of some of the other coin games, the big full, for lack of a better word, all the coin games that came before, which deal with one specific counterinsurgency situation. So this one is a little bit closer to those, a little bit more traditional, although there's still obviously wrinkles in it and differences from what you would see in, some of the other games. Let's just put it that way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the play example from the rule book instead of doing a playthrough, largely because this will keep it relatively short. It's one full campaign, so you go through up to 6 cards. And then you hit the propaganda card, at which point you do scoring and so on and so forth and reset, essentially, some of the things on the board. And then you go into the second campaign. Each of these games operates kind of in the same vein where you'll have 3 campaigns of somewhere between 4 and 6 cards each, because you randomly seed the propaganda card into the last, becomes one of the last 3 cards in the deck, so to speak. So ultimately, you're going to end up playing either 4 cards, 5 cards, or 6 cards before you hit that propaganda card. And yeah, so this one is just the first campaign. And then depending on how this goes, how it's received, maybe I'll do the same for the other 2 games, which would be Kenya and Cyprus. So without further ado, let me reset my shot here and we'll get this thing underway. Okay, so here we go. Here's the full board. First thing we're going to do is draw a card, and it's new directives. Okay, so you'll have 2 events on here, one for the British, and this colored shaded one is the insurgency in this case. That is the MCP for the Malayan Communist Party. So we have away from terror for the British, remove all sabotage and terror markers from ECs, those are economic centers, and Kuala Lumpur, which is the only city in play here. Singapore is a separate thing. Singapore is down here at the bottom, and it is not in play. Thailand up here is only in play for the MCP. The British cannot enter. And then the terrain here, you can see the legend. Dark green here is Thailand. This kind of medium green is the mountain provinces. And this lighter green are jungle provinces. And then the hashed areas are out of play. Economic centers for rubber and tin, right? And Kuala Lumpur, as I mentioned. So the British could remove all sabotage and terror markers from the economic centers and Kuala Lumpur. The MCP may perform a free limited march followed by a free limited attack. Okay. So I'm going to set this out off to the side. In this game, unlike the other games, the British actually get to go first. In the other 3 games, the insurgents go first. So here we have the British and the MCP. You have 3 choices: a limited op, play the event, or do a full op with a special activity. Over here we have tracks. This is the resource points for the British. This one is the resource points for the MCP, and this is the political will marker. If it goes into the darker shaded blue, kind of purpley color up here, that would indicate a British win. If it gets down here into the darker red, that would indicate an MCP win. So that is pretty much how it goes. Kind of a tug of war here, trying to move this track up for up if you're the British, down if you're the MCP. And then you use points, your resource points here. Again, a little bit more in the vein of the traditional kind of previous coin games. You spend resource points to do things on the board. This one's less dice heavy than Palestine. Palestine had a lot more dice rolling than you have in this one. Okay, so the British are going to do an op and special activity. And the op and special activity they're going to do a sweep, okay, which moves troops and activates guerrillas. It can be in any provinces and or Kuala Lumpur. It costs 2 resources per destination space, and you can do it in as many as you want because you're spending resources. So the British could do it in 10. They have 20 resource points, but you don't want to blow your resource points all in one go. And then the procedure will be to may move any troops into adjacent destination spaces, then activate 1 guerrilla per cube in each destination, or in the jungle, 1 for every 2 cubes. So less effective in the jungle. Okay, and then after that, they're going to do a reprisal as their special activity, which can be done in 1 province or 2 if their commander is Gurney, which it is currently. So that's down here. This is another little wrinkle here. The British have a commander track, and it changes each campaign. So first campaign is Gurney, second campaign will be Briggs, third campaign will be Templar. So it moves in that progression. Okay, so the reprisal, okay, they're going to remove opposition and displace guerrillas. So it can only be done if you're doing a garrison sweep or assault, so anything but train. Location is any province with British troops. And the procedure is to add a terror marker to the selected space, if none, and shift the space once toward neutral. So here in these areas, you can see you have a control box, and you have a kind of a box that indicates whether the province or area, district, whatever you want to call it, supports the British rule, is neutral, or supports the MCP. So when it's on the opposed side, that means it supports the MPC. Over here, we have one in Kuala Lumpur that supports the British side. So what your reprisal is going to do is basically it's a terror action by the British, because the British and the insurgents can both do terror actions in this, or place terror markers rather, which are over here, which wasn't the case in the Palestine game. In the Palestine game, the only terror and sabotage markers were placed by the insurgents. That's not the case in this game. So you can use these kind of markers here to place where you're going to make your move. So the British are going to do 3. They're going to do Perak, Pahang, and Johor. Okay, so we marked those 3. They move 3 of their troops from Kuala Lumpur to Pahang. Okay, then they move 1 from Johor to Pahang. So now they have 4, which gives them twice as much as the MCP has. So since they have more, they can flip this and make this now British controlled. And when you do that, you increase political will by 1, and that's based on the population of the province. They can now flip to active the guerrillas here in Pahang. Because it's jungle, it costs 2. So they have 4 cubes, and there's 2 here. They have 3 cubes here. The police count as cubes. They're basically, the blue cubes represent police, and in this case, that would be Malayan police. So they're going to flip that one as well. And then they're also with 4 cubes here, which is more than enough to flip the one in Perak as well. I'm going to remove these now. Okay, so the British control basically this whole kind of sweep area here, except for these 2. Okay, next we have to spend for this. So we did 3. So that we started at 20. 1, 2, 3 brings us down to 14. Spent 6. And now it's time to do the reprisal activity, a special activity. And we can do those in up to 2 provinces because we have Gurney as our commander. So we're going to choose Pahang and Perak for reprisal, which will set both provinces to neutral. So this one is already neutral, and this one we just remove the marker to indicate that it is now neutral as well. And we place a terror marker in both. And then we get to move one of the gorillas out. So it has to go to an adjacent space. So we'll move this guy to Trenganao, and we'll move the one from Perak into Pahang. So now they have no presence here in Perak anymore. And so that would end the British turn, and now we would go over to the MCP. And again, they would also have the option to choose to play the event or do a limited op. So the MCP is going to choose to do a limited op. And the limited op they're going to do is a rally operation. So if we look at their operations here, rallies right at the top, place guerrillas and bases, increase opposition. It can be in any non-economic center space without support or new villages. We haven't seen new villages yet, but we will. It costs 1 resource per space, and you place 1 guerrilla or replace 2 with a base. So this is what they're going to do. Okay, so they're going to do it in Trenganao. So they're going to take these 2 out of here and put them up here. And they're going to buy a base and put a base in Trenganao. So another thing that you can do when you do a rally is if base and MCP control, they can agitate 1 level. So agitate, every 1 MCP resource spent removes a terror marker, or once no terror shifts 1 level towards opposition up to 1 shift per space. So what that means is they're going to agitate here, and that's going to push this to oppose. So they are in support of the MCP now. That's the end of their turn, so both markers go back. And now because the MCP did a limited op while the British did a full op, the MCP gets to go first. They're first eligible. We flip another card. Planters and miners. For the British, this is resources for the Empire. They would get 6 resources and place up to 1 police in each EC. That actually sounds pretty useful to me. For the MCP, move all troops in 1 province to an EC or Kuala Lumpur. One thing I forgot to do was that cost them 1. Doing the agitate costs them 1 resource point, and obviously their op also did, so they're down to 8. They spent 2. So they're going to go with the full op this time, op with special activity. And they are going to do another rally, and they'll do an extort for their special activity. So they can select any number of spaces for their rally, pay 1 resource point for each space, and they choose a total of 7 spaces. So they're going big this time. So they're going to place a gorilla in a whole bunch of places here. So let me grab a bunch of cubes here, not cubes, cylinders. So we have 7. So they are going to do them in Kedah, Perak, Kelantan, Trenganao, Pahang, Selangor, and Negri Sembilan. And if I'm butchering these names, I apologize. Okay, so they did 7 spaces, but they can place more than 1 in some of these, like Trenganao, for example, because they have, it's Kelantan. That's what it is. They get to place 3 there because it has a population of 2 and a base. So that gives them 3, and they can put 2 in Trenganao and 2 in Pahang because it has a population of 1 and has a base. So this is all of their guerrillas are now out on the map. And they're going to do an agitate again. And that's going to spend all of their resources, but they're going to do an agitate in Kelantan, which will shift this to opposition as well. So they did that. And they get MCP control in some places here. So they'll get control in Kedah, Selangor, and Negri Sembilan. And that's going to spend all of their resource points. And now they have to do their extort action, or extort special activity, which gains resources. So that's why they were able to spend them all, because they're going to get some more back. So as you can see, you can use it with Rally, March, or Terror, everything but attack. And up to 2 spaces with an underground gorilla and no new village. In each space, activate 1 underground gorilla and increase MCP resources by 1. So they can do this in 2 spots. And they will do one in Kelantan. And they will do the other one in Trengganu. And they will move back up to 2 resource points. And that will end their turn. And now we will go to the British. So they're going to go limited op, and they're going to go with the sweep. Oh, 2 things I forgot to do. I forgot to flip this to MCP control, and I forgot to adjust the political will down by 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are now at 7. So obviously that was a big, bold move there on the MCP part. And so now what we're going to do is the British are going to do, like I mentioned, they're going to do another sweep, but this will be a limited sweep operation, so they can only do it in one place. They're going to do it here again. They're going to reveal or activate these other two gorillas, and that's going to flip control back to the British. Costs them 2 resources, so they go down to 12. And that ends the turn, and we move these guys back, and we draw another card. And this is Gurney Killed. Okay, so all of these cards are historical events, and actually in the rule book, it has a list of kind of flavor about each of the cards. So if we look here, you can see here is M10 Gurney Killed, and it tells you what it is, and it gives you some tips and background on the event, because the MCP ambushed the British commander here and killed him. So this has effects for the British, would be galvanizes settlers and allows them to place 1 police each into any 3 spaces with British pieces. For the MCP, it cancels the British commander effect until reset, and you can place 1 gorilla anywhere. But the British get to go first. So they're going to do an assault operation and an airstrike special activity. So with the assault operation here at the bottom, it eliminates MCP forces. The location has to be spaces with cubes and active MCP pieces. So that's the key thing. And you spend 2 resources per space. You can remove 1 active MCP piece per troop, or 1 per 2 if mountain, or 1 per cube in Kuala Lumpur and economic centers. Remove bases only once no gorillas remain, and add 1 political will for each base removed. So the British are going to go big here. So they're going to choose to remove 1 from Johor and 1 from Pahang, which will also remove the MCP control from Pahang, which I kind of did early there, because this actually would not have been flipped by them activating these guys. I screwed that up. They're going to do the airstrike first. You can do the special activity before the assault. You can mix it up, kind of. So this will remove active guerrillas with any of the ops. Up to 2 provinces with British forces, remove 1 active guerrilla in each province. So they're going to use that in 2 provinces, of course. They're going to do it in Johor, and they're going to remove 1 from Pahang, and that flips this to British control. It was MCP. That does increase political will from 7 to 8, because they flipped this back. Next day, assault in Pahang only, and can remove 1 active MCP piece for every troop there, removing bases last. So this is why we use the airstrike to get rid of 1. So that leaves 3, and the base would be 4, and they have 4 troops here, so they get to remove all 3 and the base. So that's pretty key for the British there, and that increases their political will by 1 again. So basically what happened was the air assault, or airstrike rather, made this uncontrolled, and then the assault put it back in British control. So that's why it went up by 2. It went up by 1 when it was neutral or uncontrolled, and then 1 again, stuck to my finger, when it became British control. So they pay 2 resource points for that, because they only did it in 1 province. And the turn is complete. And now we go back. So they did a full and they did a limited. I forgot to move those out. Or, I'm sorry. They did they did a full, and they're going to now do theirs next. Okay, the MCP will do a limited op, and they are going to do a march operation. And so this is a march operation which allows them to move gorillas to any destination space, and it costs 1 resource per non-EC destination. So, and it's into adjacent destination spaces. If a destination isn't EC or has support, and if gorillas moving from one origin plus cubes in that destination exceed 3, activate those moving gorillas. So they're going to move 1 underground gorilla from Kelantan to the adjacent EC. So they're going to take one of their unrevealed guys here underground, and they're going to move them into this EC here, which I think is a tin mine, is what's represented there, and this is rubber trees over here. Okay, so then we reset this. So MCP is first eligible, the British are second eligible, and we move on to the next card, and this is MNLA. So high casualties for the British. MCP must remove 1 attacking or ambushing gorilla for each troop removed. MCP capability. Okay, so capability is kind of a lasting effect. MCP attack and ambush, remove any 2 British cubes in each selected space. All right, so MCP gets to go first. So they're going to decide to perform a terror operation and use their intimidate special activity. So we're going to do that. So the terror allows them to build opposition and sabotage economic centers. By sabotaging the ECs, they remove resource points from the British at the propaganda round at the end of this campaign. So they can do it any spaces with underground gorillas, and it costs them 1 resource per EC space selected. In each selected space, activate 1 underground gorilla if province or Kuala Lumpur. Place terror if none, and shift ones toward opposition. If EC, place sabotage if none. So but they're going to actually intimidate first, which removes police, new villages, and support. It goes with the rally or terror operations. It can be done in 2 spaces, up to 2 spaces with underground gorillas, and in each space we're going to remove a police cube. Or if there is more gorillas than British forces there, they can instead remove a new village and any support there. Okay. So there's only 1 space that's eligible for intimidate, and that's Perak here. So they're just going to remove 1 of the police cubes there. Now they can use terror to activate 1 underground gorilla and place a terror marker or a sabotage marker in an economic center and shift once towards opposition. Terror costs 1 resource per space in provinces and Kuala Lumpur, or 0 in economic centers, based on what I just read you off the player aid card. So they only have 2 left, 2 ECs left. So they're going to do terror in Kedah, Negri Sembilan, and the economic center. So Kedah up here, they're going to put a terror in here, and that's going to flip this guy over, and it'll put an oppose in here as well. And they do the same in Negri Sembilan. They get activated, terror, and an oppose marker. And then they get a sabotage marker here in the EC, which is actually free. But that does cost them their last 2. And that's the end of their turn. So we'll do the British now, and they're going to do a limited op for a garrison operation. So that's going to protect ECs and reposition forces. It can be done in any EC, Kuala Lumpur, and up to 1 province. It costs 2 resources total. Move any cubes desired to any ECs, Kuala Lumpur, and 1 province. Then in each EC, activate 1 gorilla for each cube, and may free assault in 1 EC. That's going to cost them 2, so I'll move that down. So since this operation's limited, they can only move cubes to 1 space and may only activate an assault in an economic center if they move any cubes there. So they're going to move 2 troops from Pahang to Negri Sembilan, and that's going to flip control, because they have twice as much, from MCP to the British. And that increases political will by 2. And that's all they're doing. So now they'll become first eligible. MCP will become second eligible. Draw our next card. It is trade unions. Suppressed MCP resources -3. Set Kuala Lumpur to support. For the MCP, it would be MCP resources +5 and set Kuala Lumpur to neutral. So in this case, the British are going to, again, opt not to use the event. And from what I've seen, actually, from playing and watching videos of other people playing, is that it seems like events don't get played a ton. I played a few events when I played the Palestine game. Because oftentimes, because of the somewhat compressed time scale, I think, it feels like you need to do actions. So you need to do operations to kind of keep things moving. So unless an event is really heavily slanted in your way, you might just elect to basically ignore the events and go for the ops as much as possible. So they're going to do a full op. And they are going to do a train operation with a resettle special activity. So here's train and here's resettle. They're right next to each other. So with train, you can place cubes and increase support. You can do it in Kuala Lumpur and provinces that aren't MCP control. 2 resources per space. Each space selected, you can place up to 2 police, or if Kuala Lumpur, you can place 4 cubes, troops, and or police. Then as desired in 1 train space or 2 with Templar, who is not our commander. If troops, police, and British control, pacify 1 level. So pacify is kind of the, you can spend 2 resource points and remove a terror marker from a space, or if there's no terror, you can shift support. So it's kind of the opposite of the agitate for the MCP. We're going to put 4 cubes in Kuala Lumpur. So we'll put 4 troops there in Kuala Lumpur to make a total of 5. Then we will do 2 police each in Pahang and Johor. So 2 police here and 2 police here. That's a total of 6 resources. So we're going to go from 8 all the way down to 2. Then the British can pacify in 1 space selected for train that has British control. Okay, so that would be here, here, and here. So they're going to spend their final 2 resources to shift Johor from neutral to support. So they're both at 0 now, but they're going to get support here. And now they can resettle in 1 British-controlled space to shift it once toward opposition and place a new village marker which will prevent, rally, and extort and blocks any opposition in the space from being counted during the propaganda round. So that we're getting close to the propaganda round. Both sides are at 0 resource points, so it's really all about positioning at this point for the upcoming propaganda round. So the British are going to place a new village in Negri Sembilan, and it's already at opposition. So basically, this is kind of a way to counteract the effects of the opposition. Homo Ludens, Fred Serval's YouTube channel has some really good videos on this game, the multipack, but specifically this game, where Stpehen Rangazas, the designer, will actually he explains kind of the whole, historical background for this entire campaign, which is pretty fascinating if you're into history, about what the new villages were designed to do and how the British used them and so on and so forth. So if you haven't checked that out, I do recommend it. It's really cool. So now it's the MCP's turn, and they're going to execute the event because they're at 0 resources anyway. So they're going to execute this event, which gives them 5 resources and sets Kuala Lumpur to neutral. So that's pretty easy. So they're going to go to the event. They're going to take this support away, and it's now neutral. And they're going to gain 5 resource points. The British are still at 0. Okay, so that's pretty easy to do. And so we now reset. The MCP is first eligible. The British are second eligible. We have our next to last card, weapon bounties. For the British, this would pay them up to 3 resources to remove 1 guerrilla. Or they can pay up to 3 resources, which they don't have, to remove 1 guerrilla per resource spent. For the MCP, you can transfer 2 resources from the British, so basically steal some of their stuff. right? Essentially. So we know the British aren't going to be able to do that event because they don't have any resource points. So the MCP gets to go first anyway. So they're going to do an attack and ambush special activity. So the attack removes British cubes. It can be done in any spaces with gorillas and cubes. One resource per space. They have 5 now. In each selected space, activate all the gorillas and roll a die. Equal to or less than the number of gorillas removes 2 cubes, police first. If any troops are removed, lower political will by 1. So the police are local forces. They're Malayans, right? So, or Malays, I think maybe. I want to say Malaysians because that's what they are now, but I think back then they were just Malays. Anyway, oh, I didn't talk about ambush. Ambush modifies one space selected for attack where there's an underground gorilla. So the MCP is going to do this first, and they're going to do it in Perak here. And they're going to activate one gorilla. So it's the only one they have. Remove 1 cube, and it has to be police before troops. Then they're going to do Negri Sembilan for an attack. So if there were underground here, which there are not, they would need to activate them, then roll a die aiming to score equal or lower than the number of gorillas in this space. So we're going to roll our red die here, and we got a 1. But in the play example, it says that it's a 4. So we're going to make it a 4. So they rolled a 4, and it has no effect because there's only 1 gorilla in the space. So if they had succeeded, they would have removed 2 cubes. Again, police first. So there aren't any police here, so they would have removed both troops, which would have actually dropped the political will as well. So if either attack or ambush ever removes a troops cube, the political will is reduced by 1. MCP must pay 1 resource for each space, so they go down to 3. And now the British have no resources, and the event would require them to spend it, so they're going to pass. So they're just going to pass. So you could put them in the limited op. They could actually go in the event and then pass on the event. Doesn't matter. Either way, they're going to go first or go back to being in the first eligible spot. But we're at the propaganda point, or propaganda. My accent kicking in there. We're at the propaganda round. So we flip the card. It's going to be the propaganda card. Surprise, surprise. Okay, so we're going to conduct the political will step and then check for victory, which there won't be one. And then if neither player won the last propaganda card, which this is the first campaign, so again, we're just going to go with the full propaganda round, which is on the card. That's Cyprus. That's Kenya. Where's my card? Here it is. The propaganda round for Malaya. Political will, adjust political will by the net of the following. So they tell you to do all of this first, these 2 first, because sometimes there's some cases where if you start moving this around, it's going to get messed up. So hearts and minds, subtract total opposition population without new villages from total support population, then adjust political will by the difference, increase if positive, decrease if negative. So political will is going to be lowered by a total of -4. It's going to be -3 because we have 5 population that are in opposition. Okay, with no new villages. So we have like 2 here, 2 here, 1 here, that's 5, right? This one has a new village, so you can't count it. So that's the 5 there. And you have 2 population with support, 2 here, and none anywhere else. And -1 because there is a sabotage marker there. So that gives us our -4. So that's going to knock us down to 7. We do resources. Okay, so I didn't read this one, but this is where it tells you if you have support or sabotage rather in an EC, it's going to subtract 1. So we're not in the automatic range down here or up here, obviously. So this isn't the final propaganda round. The game's not over. We would continue to the second campaign. Resources, British earnings. So they will increase British resources by the amount of British-controlled population and the value of each unsabotaged EC. MCP will increase MCP resources by twice the number of bases on the map. So The British are going to gain 6 for each economic center without sabotage. So that's here. They have a 1. So that's going to be plus 6 for them, plus resources equal to the British-controlled population, which is 10. So they're going to gain 16 total. And that's going to move them from 0 up to, what did I say, 16, right? 16. MCP gain 2 for each resource on the map, which is 4. So that's going to move, well, there's 2 bases, so that's 4. So that's going to move them to 7. Then we do support. Okay, we move to support next. British may pacify in 2 spaces with British-controlled police and troops. Every 2 British resources spent removes a terror marker from a space, or once no terror can shift once towards support up to 1 shift per space. So basically the British can now spend resources to kind of gain extra support. So they're going to do that in Kuala Lumpur and Pahang. In Kuala Lumpur, they're going to pay 2 resources to add support. So they're going to get a support back here because it was at neutral. And then in Pahang, they're going to pay 4 resources to remove the terror. And, there was an oppose. I somehow screwed that up. There's supposed to be an oppose there, and I screwed that up. So they're going to spend a total of 6 and be left with 10. Then on the MCP side, they can agitate in 2 spaces with MCP pieces and no British control. Every 1 MCP resource spent removes a terror marker from a space, or once no terror shifts towards opposition, up to 1 shift per space. So they can agitate in up to 2 spaces, but they'll do so only in Selangor, paying 1 resource to add opposition. So they'll go down to 6. And here in Selangor, we're going to add an oppose, like so. Whoops. Okay. Redeploy. Okay. British must move its troops in ECs or provinces with MCP control to Kuala Lumpur or British-controlled provinces. British can then move police to any ECs, Kuala Lumpur, or British-controlled provinces, then adjust all control. Okay. So the British must move all troops. There are no troops in this situation. So they don't have any troops that are sitting in a province that is controlled by the MCP. So the MCP's got Kedah, Kelantan, Terengganu, and Selangor. No British troops in any of those, so that does not apply. Then they may move any police to economic centers, Kuala Lumpur, or British-controlled provinces. And so they're going to move 2 from Johor to Perak. So they're going to just do like this. Okay. And now reset. So the reset is the last step of the propaganda round. It removes all terror and sabotage from the map. Flip all guerrillas underground. Shift commander track 1 space to the right, if possible. Reveal the next card and continue play. I forgot to flip this to Gurney being killed. So you can see there on the other side it says Gurney killed. On the front it says commander. We're going to put that on Briggs now. And this would be the start of the second campaign, but it's going to be the end of my video. So not as smooth as I would have liked. I'm not extremely pleased with the way it worked out. But hopefully you got the gist of how the game is played. And I'm only unhappy. I'm unhappy with myself as far as I messed up. Even just reading out of a book and trying to do this stuff, I still screwed it up. So anyway, hopefully you were able to follow along and get something out of that. Please feel free to comment and let me know if you think this was worthwhile and it should be done for Kenya and or Cyprus. If so, I will try to fit that into my schedule. But we'll see how, as I said, I'm going to let you guys make that call to some extent. If there is enough, and I don't know what enough is, but if there are, some number of people who would like to see that, then I'd be more than happy to do it. Otherwise, I probably won't do, I probably may not, I shouldn't say probably may not. I might not do more videos on this game. That doesn't mean I won't play the game. It just means I won't do videos on it. Only because I've discovered through trial and error that, after 2-3 videos on one game, people start to tune out. My audience or subscriber base isn't so large that I, can do a 5, 10 video series on a game and have people stick around. So that's why I tend to try to keep them smaller in terms of numbers. So anyway, that's a big digression there, and I apologize. So as always, let me just say thank you for watching. Ask for your support in the form of a like or a share or a subscription. Obviously, any or all of those would be much appreciated, especially a subscription. But if not, like I always say, as long as you guys get something out of it and enjoy it, that's good enough for me. So that's going to do it. My name is Joe. This is Hexed Encountered. And until next time, happy gaming.